know I met the rest of the band, or at least some members of the band. Was I'm sure it was you as well.
Yeah.
It was a while back.
Hi, I'm Johnny Lloyd,
Hey, I'm Clif Norrell.
and we're here to talk about our new album, Reanimate, for Audio Network. I do remember walking into Sound City on day one, I think it was September. No, it was August, wasn't it? 2012.
Yep.
We were very excited because you'd made one of our favorite records by REM, Automatic for the People. So I think we were just waiting to break the ice to ask you a load of geeky questions about that. So I started working with Audio Network in 2016, mainly by myself, and then with a couple of other guys in London. Then I remember mentioning it to you, Cliff,
Hmm.
2018, that we might do a record, and it might be quite exciting to try and write some songs together. Obviously, we'd worked together on Drive Wish to Scream, and yeah, it just went from there. I think
Yeah.
it's pretty easy. The initial collaboration with us, which was nice. And it was cool, like hanging out at your place.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of told me about that. I mean, I think I didn't know too much about what you were doing with Audio Network at that point, but you kind of said, "Hey, I'm in town. Let's get together." And it was I didn't really know what we were going to do, and we jumped in the studio and we wrote a song together. So like I hadn't written with you before that because I was just engineering and mixing and producing, and and it went really well. I think we finished a song in a day pretty much, and I thought it came out really great, and I think you did too. And that was kind of when you said, "Hey, I've been working with Audio Network, and I've done these albums, and this is a cool thing," and you kind of described it to me, and and you sort of ran the idea of doing an album together, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do it."
We have a similar tolerance for how much we want to do in a day and where the burnout phase is. When it's time to eat something or go in the sea. But it's
I
been
think what's
tough
cool,
moments.
yeah, I think what's cool about working with you, Johnny, is that there's no ego, and it's like if if I've got an idea, if it's good, we'll go with it. And same with, the back and forth kind of thing. If there's no, hard feelings. If somebody says, "Yeah, that's not good enough," or I think we can do that, or that idea is not great. Um, it's totally cool. And we know that the idea is that we just want to make something great. What really inspired this album were some really incredibly extraordinary events that happened um, that kind of imbued everything with a lot of emotion. So, I mean, right after we finished um, the Zuma Canyon album, there was a really huge wildfire in this area called the Woolsey Fire, and it was very intense for me because just before that there was a crazy mass shooting that happened just over and over the hill close to here, and then that same day that happened, this fire started burning towards where I live and through this Zuma Canyon area, which is not far from where I live. And there's been a lot of wildfires in this area, but this one seemed different. And I got to the point where it was coming over our hill and we had to evacuate, and I couldn't get home for 10 days and didn't know whether my home was still here or not. But it burned down like close to 1,000 homes, and it was really devastating for this whole community. And it just kind of it kind of emotionally wrecked a lot of people. And just kind of going to the idea of Zuma Canyon, I would go back there. It's one of my favorite places to go, and everything was burnt, and just completely, it was like a moonscape, this whole, like a giant area. And but over the time that we were recording, slowly things were starting to regrow and come back, and at the same time the community was healing, and people rebuilding their lives, rebuilding their houses. And so that was kind of an emotional event. And then during that whole period, the pandemic happened. There was a crazy period of social unrest and rioting that were happening that started out in one town and then slowly spread across the US. And that was a whole nother thing. It's like, wait, we just like dealing with the shock of COVID, and now we've got this happening. And so all that kind of went into the idea of like, in my mind, of it would be great if we could get a fresh start, and things that could be, renewed and try to make things better. And so that was kind of my inspiration for some of the songs and some of the lyrics, and just thinking about how things were going to hopefully improve, and they have been, which is great. So, but I think for me, those kind of emotional events are what inspire cool music, and But how about you, Johnny?
Yeah, I think it was that. I kind of took your lead on it. There was like, for me, it was like the reopening of society, and being able to travel again was kind of like how I read into it, and how I sort of like, we just sort of stopped our lives one day and then we restarted them. It was just such a shock, both in like, as a society and as a family. It's just trying to live through that virus.
So what's your favorite track, Johnny? I think maybe yours is the same as mine.
Might start over.
Oh, excellent. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. You like start over? I was going to say, I was afraid I was going to have the same one as you. I love Only Human.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just like when that chorus hits, it's just like, it just feels so glorious. I love it.
Yeah, I just love the intro and start over. That's why I just love that synth sound coming in. And the drum beat on that is really interesting.
On Start Over, I kind of had that idea in my head for a long time. Like it's funny. I thought of the drum beat first, and but I mean, it was weird because most of that song was like a complete idea in my head. Like it was one of those. It's the only time it's ever happened to me. It was like where I hear the final product before I actually got started on it.
That's interesting. Sometimes they drop out of the sky like that. Between those two albums, I worked on I Hate Susie and I Hate Susie 2, that TV show, which was quite a lot of work. And also Tribes got back together and we've made our third album. Did quite a bit of touring last year. We're about to embark on many dates, starting in about 2 months' time, which is exciting.
Johnny, you're so prolific. You work on so much stuff. It's incredible. So I think we actually, I worked on an album with you during that time as well, for one of your solo albums. But I've been doing a lot of mixing. I work with the band Ghost, mix some for this artist Juliana Hatfield. Also work with this indie band called Rye. That's a really awesome band. A few other kind of. I'm thinking there's a Americana artist named Dalton Domino. I did some mixing for a band called Hounds, and I've been doing a lot of mixing in Dolby Atmos as well.
Oh, you did the REM record. Was that between Zuma or was that before?
I think it was just before. It was just before that.
Yeah, I still don't quite understand the. I think you'll have to explain it to me after the interview.
Yeah. Recording's changed quite a bit over the years since I got started. When I started, really couldn't do recording at home so much. There was such a high barrier to entry for the kind of equipment that you needed with the 24-track tape machines and a big recording console and all that. You had to be in a recording studio, like proper, like a professional recording studio to do that, and you needed an engineer. And so you really had to have a decent budget to be able to get there. Even for a reel of tape was $200. So it's so much more democratized now, which is a good thing, but it's also created a thing where pretty much anybody with a computer can make music. So there's there's so much more music out there. It's a little bit harder to find quality music sometimes if you're looking for something that's not just real mainstream. But for me, it's been amazing because now I can mix records here. We can make records in our own studios. Johnny has his own little setup where he can make music as well, and we can trade things back and forth. And it's such a quality that we can, use it for the final product as well. It's not just like in the early days we could do home recording, but it was pretty lousy quality, and you'd have to go and redo everything. What I like about that is that that initial inspiration for a song, it sometimes has this energy that you can't recapture. And so that's happened quite a few times with Johnny and I on our collaborations. Plus the internet has made it so that we can, no matter where we are, we can collaborate. And those ideas that he's sending me or I'm sending him, if we like it, we can use it. It doesn't have to be like, oh, that's cool, let's redo it. So I love that part about it. And it's been, amazing work with you in that way. If there was somebody you could work with that you haven't before, like who would be your dream collaborator?
I think I'd like, if it was a songwriting thing, I think it has to be Dylan every time, even though he doesn't work with everybody. I don't know. I think it's hard, isn't it? Taste sort of changes all the time, but I think it would probably be him. But you can get his number in Malibu, you can bring him around the house.
Yeah, I know where he lives, so we'll go by his house. Interestingly enough, I've been I was thinking about this. It probably wouldn't be an artist. I think it would probably be a producer songwriter. I think I was thinking Max Martin would be amazing because he's got such an incredible body of work. I know a lot of it's super poppy, but it's got this like perfection to it in a way of not that it's perfect music or anything like that, but it just seems to everything fits really well.
My career highlights usually, instead of like a sort of number or signing a deal, is possibly more personal one. I think it was the first time we landed in Tokyo. I think it was just it was something that I'd certainly dreamed of as a kid, to play music in Japan and to have such a big show and reception there for us the first time we went. I think it was 2011, was just an incredible moment. I remember, luckily we actually have it on film somewhere, but like walking out on stage, and we did some TV shows which were just completely weird and wonderful, and just seeing Tokyo and Osaka for the first time was an amazing experience. And having that realization that maybe your music can take you to places you would never go was something that was a bit of an eye-opener. And then we went on to travel a lot more, but it was that was the first place we'd ever been outside of Europe. So it was just an absolute mind blower of a trip, and it's always stuck with me as one of my career highlights, without a doubt.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that for me, it's also a personal one. It's just like for me, the highlights have been I've been able to work with people that were my heroes when I was a teenage, musician. And that's kind of during your formative years for listening to music. And like, for example, Rush, I was a massive Rush fan. To be able to sit in a room with them and collaborate with them musically, it's been awesome. But like people like Bruce Springsteen, I did the same with, and Eddie Van Halen. There was times when I was, in a studio with just me and Eddie Van Halen, and he was playing guitar solos like next to me, and having them also want my opinion on things, and respect my opinion or respect my skills for listening, and it kind of takes you back when somebody like Mick Jagger says, hey, does that sound cool? Is that all right? Or or Neil Peart is like, is my drumming cool? I'm like, yeah, it's great.
I don't know what inspires me or motivates me to make music. I can't imagine doing anything else, and I just don't like doing anything else. I think that's I think about music constantly. And it's just, I've always been like that since I was about 8. I'm very excited by music, and I was brought up in a house that was, rock and roll was the most important thing, and the people in those bands were like, held on a big pedestal. My dad loves Lou Reed and Van Morrison, and those people were spoken about like they were gods, and it was funny at the end of school. I remember saying my teacher's going, you should go to university. My dad was like, you should just do music. Just start a rock band. You know what I mean? How many dads say that? So it's like, as I get older, I realize how different that approach was. But it's something that's just always just been like, yeah, this is as important as anything else. I really believe that, music, rock and roll, whatever genre it is sort of like the lifeblood of society in a lot of ways. And I'm like always like grateful to be a part of the business and grateful to like be in a band that can, play, and like I love everything about it. It's been really good working for Audio Network. I think it's almost 10 albums I've done from now, and it's just I love working with this company. I think it's amazing to see how far and wide the music that we make gets used. We had a song, Cliff, Goodbye Love, that became a bit of a hit in Italy after it was on this show called Tear Along the Dotted Line, which is like this cult animation show on Netflix. And it's amazing to see those songs that you've written get used in such a different way to the commercial music I make. It's always a bit of a journey. You kind of make this stuff and it goes out into the world and you see where it comes back and where it lands. But I always, I keep doing it. I like working for these guys.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed working with them. I think that part of it is they've been super receptive to what we're doing and open to some ideas. I think like on our first album, I think they gave us kind of a direction and we went in a little bit different direction, but they totally loved it and it was great. It's also, like you mentioned, Johnny, great to have the kind of exposure that we're getting, and to be able to have it accessible to so many people who are looking for music for their projects or just wanting to listen to music. And I know it's great to have that happening as well.